Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and my last video went over well, and so I figured I'd do another one similar, whereby I ask a yes or no question, or I'm looking for a validation or an affirmation. Because you don't need to have, a dozen cards on the table for a direct thought like that. And I usually only use 3 cards. And I'll probably have other thoughts and musings in the course of this video, but for now, that's what I'm saying. And I like to give credit to the decks I use. I believe this is the second time I bought this deck. I bought it a number of years ago, but it was still a second deck. It's the Tarot of Marseille by Fournier. I had it, I'm sure I had this in the 70s or 80s. I'm sure of it, but I must have, I don't know what happened to it. So I replaced it about, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe. But at any rate, it's the Marseille, Tarot of Marseille by Fournier. And I don't use it much. I used to use it all the time back in the day when I first got it, because there weren't too many pip style decks. And so when I saw one, I grabbed it, but I kind of I have too many decks, I guess, and I used to have them on rotation, whereby I would use my decks all the time, but now I have just too many for that. And some of them I don't even use anymore. Like I have a bunch of decks that I rarely, if ever, use, which is sad. Most of them are the Waite Coleman Smith variety. I bought them in the 90s when that's pretty much the only game in town, but it never really clicked with me a whole lot. So they sort of just sit. Anyway, so the question is a real question put to me by my husband, who said, you're always doing videos and you're always doing readings for people. I have a question, so how could I refuse? Such a pitch. He's in the process of planning a family reunion for his side of the family. We don't have children together, so that, it's his children and, their families. And it's been a complicated process with a lot of moving parts. And my husband wants to know if it will go as planned and will it be a success. So there we have 2 affirmations we're looking for. We're looking for, will it go as planned, and will it be a success? Now, as it could be argued that as planned is not just the technical aspects and the logistics, but also as planned also means a success, right? We're not planning it to be a failure. So I think one affirmation would suffice. I think one affirmation would suffice. I'm not looking for 2 separate affirmations with that. And for this, I'll do the same kind of spread I did in the previous yes or no affirmation validation spread. I'll use 3 cards and a quint. And this time I'll be extra careful to make sure I'm seeing what's really there. Every now and then it happens. It's probably happened to everybody who's a tarot reader, where you see one thing, but it really is something else. Like your brain maybe registers it as a knight, but it's really a page, or you see it as one suit, but it's really another, or you see it as one number and it's another number. Those things happen, just you're human. But in those cases, I thought carefully about it, because I thought, well, do I go back and do I redo the whole reading now based on that? But I feel no, because I feel at the moment that you're receiving message, that's what you're receiving, and that's, and there's no lies, it's understood that it's a genuine, that you're having a genuine moment where you're seeing it or perceiving it as something, and that's how you're interpreting it. So I think we can all cut ourselves a break when those kinds of things happen, and we don't have to go back and reevaluate. Sometimes it's interesting to go back and reevaluate just as a lesson, right? But I don't think, as far as the genuine nature of the message, that you have to go back and try to justify it. Okay, so I, because this is a real question, I did do most of my meditation and my shuffling, with my head in that space for a positive, a meaningful answer. I'm not necessarily. I mean, we are hoping for a positive response, but really, what the meditation is to bring out the most meaningful reading that we can understand, right? So I just shuffle on camera a little bit, for your comfort in knowing that this is not a staged reading, that it's genuine. So we have the Chariot. Now this is interesting on a few notes. And again, I don't necessarily interpret each card as it pops up for my client. I read them as a whole. But for the sake of demonstration and teaching, I do show you what my thought process is as I lay a card. So maybe it's helpful. So the first card that I'm pulling is the Chariot card. Now, immediately, since this is a family reunion, and we have people in Europe, and we have people in various states in the United States, which essentially are different countries, because this place is so big, there's a lot of travel involved. So a main feature or a main aspect of the logistics of this is travel, which I think is very interesting. Now we have the Ace of Cups, which is an opportunity of an emotional sort. It could be a very successful thing. It could be seen as a very satisfying and successful card. It could be noted that in the game of tarot, which I don't play, by the way, so I'm not a tarot playing expert, but the suit of coin and the suit of cups, their ace is higher ranking. So than the 10, and the 10 being the lowest ranking. And so in that light, if that's how you see the cards, the Ace of Cups, could definitely signify a very satisfying and very happy emotional event, which would suggest that the logistics go off pretty well. Even if we see this as the ace of 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, which sometimes it might occur to you to read it that way, right? It's still a very large ace, right? So it's very much suggesting a big emotional payback, whether it's an ace or a 1. But I just wanted to point out that information about the 10 versus the 1 of the suit of cups and the suit of coin. And then here we have the 6 of swords. Now I'm sure I'm double checking. That's a 6 and those are swords. Okay, so 6, I've said it before, to me represents a perfect number. And the suit of swords, has to do with a few things. It could be authority, it could be illegal, right? It could represent communication, which in this case, since we're talking about logistics for a family reunion, communication makes the most sense. And since 6 is a perfect number and we have like the perfect, it looks like to me we're talking about perfect communication, so that the logistics work out, and that we have a nice big payoff. Now let's take a look at the numeric values for those of you who might be interested in doing the quints. So we have a 7 and an ace, which gives us 8. And 8 and 6 is 14. Now for those of you who would subtract 22 from 14, you would get a negative number, right? Which is why I don't do it that way. What I do is I add them up. If the sum of the numbers is a number between 1 and 21, I pull it, which would be temperance in this case. If it's higher than 21, then some people would then subtract 22. I don't know what they do in this case, but I know if it's higher than 22, they subtract 22. Or what I do is I just, add the two numbers. So then if this were, say, 28, I would add 2 plus 8 and get 10. But the truth of the matter is, for 7 and 1, we have 8, and 8 and 6, we have 14, which is temperance. So let me pull temperance. Here we go. Fortunately, it wasn't too far. Okay, so what's temperance? Tell us. What is the additional information we get with temperance? Well, we get that, we have to honor and recognize that it's a complicated event. We have to honor and recognize that a lot of people, including ourselves, have logistical details to work out, and that it can become frustrating, although the Six of Swords I don't see as frustrating, but it has the potential to be frustrating. And so temperance reminds us to keep language and dialogue in the spirit of the intent of the event, which is for love and for joy, right? So to keep communication with that intentional purpose for the best possible outcome. Temperance is a card that that means restraint too. It means restraint. So I've kind of interpreted it as not necessarily compromise, because I don't necessarily think that the temperance card describes compromise, but recognizing that there are more than one opinion, right? And there's more than one issue. And so to keep it, to keep the discourse temperate, right? To keep the discourse pleasant. Now, I know this video is 12 minutes long already, and if I were doing this for a client, I wouldn't have gone through all the dialogue I just went through. A yes or no question would be an affirmative yes or no. And I think one of the things that we need to do with our clients is to have them, is to direct them to ask more critical thinking questions. Sometimes we just want to cut to the chase and we want yes or no. Is this thing going to work out? Am I even wasting my time? And so in that regard, a quick yes or no response is all you really need. But sometimes people have like these major life event concerns, and they ask it with a yes or no, and it doesn't allow them to see what they can do to bring about the best possible outcome. Now, the way I interpret, or the way I do cards for yes or no, I do it this way, whereby I look at the message of the cards. I look at the message of the cards. I'm not looking to see if I have 2 reversed or 3 reversed, or I'm not looking to see if I have a majority of swords or a majority of cups. I'm looking at the message of the cards. I mean, that's how I read the cards, as I'm looking at the message of the cards. But there are some people who consistently and have consistent and effective methods for determining yes or no. And those methods might be, if cards are upright or reversed. And I think that's probably something from the Waite Smith tradition, since cards are clearly reversed and upright. And although we have, clarity of reversed cards with these 3 cards, there's no question if they're reversed or not. This one is a little more, and I guess this too, we can tell that this is probably not the intended direction, but that this is, right? But even so, I don't really concern myself with reversals or, that. I concern myself with the message of the cards, and that's how I do it. I think when people, maybe back in the day, like with hedge witchery, like with, a regular deck of playing cards, maybe red meant yes, and no, and black meant no, and an even amount meant maybe, which is maybe where some people might get, translated into tarot as being upright cards, or cards of certain suits representing yes and no. But I don't know, for whatever reason, that never caught on in my head, and I I just really interpret I think because I like having critical thinking messages whereby not only are we getting an affirmation, but we're also getting instruction or information or clues about how to make sure that this happens, right? The weakest area is the logistics, right? You know, the fact that people are traveling from multiple countries and states, and that a lot of communication is required. So it's recognizing that those are the key issues, you know. So those are the issues, those are the concerns. It does look as though ultimately that all works out for a joyous emotional thing, you know, satisfaction. And maybe the additional quint card helps us understand how to keep this in check, you know, by you know, honoring and recognizing that there are multiple pieces and not everybody might get their way. You know, there may be some, okay, let's compromise here, even though I don't necessarily always read this card that way. In the light, in the context of this question, I think it's appropriate. I hope this was fun for you. And as always, if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe and tell your friends. I'm not a perfect tarot reader. I do my best and I share what I know, and I've been doing it a long time. And I hope that it's beneficial to some of you. I enjoy what I do. Until next time, friends, peace and stay well.